Hello, welcome back to my channel. Yesterday I asked on Instagram, I wrote a post about the two ways of being human in my perception, and that's to lead life from an unconscious experience and then lead life from a conscious experience. And I'm just in my driveway, by the way, that's why it's a long driveway. That's why I'm recording and driving at the same time. I'm gonna stop here though before I get onto the road. And I asked you if you would be interested in getting to know my journey to becoming conscious, and so I'm recording this video for you because overwhelmingly so many people wanted to hear about my journey towards becoming conscious. And when I say conscious, it's definitely not something to hold above someone else, or that you're wrong for being unconscious or anything like that. Anyone who knows about becoming conscious, that it's a fucking hard journey, and you need to pull back all that you thought you were in order to get to your truth, to become conscious of who you really are. And it's a really hard journey and includes an ego death or several in order to become conscious. So I'm not saying this from a perspective of being better than anyone else. It's just simply a different way of living. I don't know if everyone's path in life is to become conscious. It's just something that is there. And in the post on Instagram, I did mention that when you're living life from an unconscious perspective, and this is purely my perspective, by the way, when I was living life from an unconscious perspective, I didn't know that there was something more. It's kind of, I equated it to waddling through shallow water, and I was just like, for me, I just kept asking myself, is this all there is to life? Is this all there is to life? And I just kept waddling through the shallow water. It just felt like such a shallow experience without me knowing that there was a drop off into a vast, massive, endless ocean right next to me. And that's what it feels like going from, for me, unconscious to conscious. Is like all of a sudden I just took a few steps and went vroom, into this vastness of a never-ending ocean, and just so much to see and to explore. And I'm just like, holy shit, I've gone from is this all there is to life to whoa, holy shit, there is so much to life that we're not taught about ourselves and all the possibilities of who we are as humans. Frickers. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm actually on my way to therapy now as well. I love therapy. It's part of my self-care routine. So after therapy, I might be in a slightly different energy, but I want to keep talking about this. And I think therapy and going into my shadow, uncovering truths, is part of my consciousness journey, becoming conscious of everything that is happening within me. So I thought it was just really appropriate to do this video today while I have therapy. So there you go. All right, I am off to see my therapist. And by the way, I am a huge advocate of therapy. If you find a good therapist, it's like they are worth their weight in gold. I fucking love my therapist. I have no stigma around therapy anymore. I used to, but now that I've found the right therapist, it's just like, ugh, self-care. And because I help people through my coaching and through my programs, I feel like it's my duty to constantly work on myself as well. And even my therapist has a therapist and constantly works on herself as well, and has done heaps of work. And I think that's the key to a good therapist, is when they do the work themselves. Anyway, back to the going from unconscious to the consciousness journey. I'll talk about this more soon. I gotta go to my therapy session now. Alrighty. Alright, I'm just about to go into therapy, but as I was driving here, do you like my hat, by the way? My housemate got it for me. I was thinking that there is such a thing as, like, the difference between ego. There is an unhealthy ego and a healthy ego. Unhealthy ego a lot of the time comes from when you're unconscious and not aware of what is driving you. And then there is a healthy ego, because we can't be human without an ego. It's what makes us human. And it's kind of like a healthy way of being, that you're conscious of who you are. You have pure confidence because of the journey that you've been on, of the challenges that you've overcome, and the lessons that you have learned about yourself. So conscious people can be very confident in themselves because of that, and it's a healthy ego to have. But if someone uses their consciousness as like a way to up someone else, that I think is a spiritual ego, which can develop when people become spiritual and start to become conscious, which I have been guilty of in the past as well. And sometimes I still have unhealthy ego things that I need to work on. But yeah, it's just super interesting learning about all this stuff. Man, wait till I tell you about my journey. It's been great. Alrighty, I'm out of my therapy session. Have just spent some time journaling. Whew, it was a powerful session today. God damn. Having this one-on-one with someone is just so priceless. And I'm so grateful for it. But now, I'll talk about my journey to consciousness and being aware of myself. I guess consciousness is just being aware of all aspects of yourself, like what is happening in your body, what sensations you're feeling, sorry, I'm feeling a bit out of it after my therapy session, but it's being aware of yourself as a human and understanding what your emotions are, what your traumas have been, healing the traumas, healing the beliefs and projections of others onto you so that you can really get down to your truth. Being in tune with your spiritual nature and being aware of your spiritual nature and what you are, what this world is, being able to being connected with yourself, with the world, the environment, and what is really true. Because there's a lot of ideas that people put in our heads and have been passed down throughout humanity, different ideas that have disconnected us from what is real. And so part of consciousness is digging through those beliefs and programs within us and learning what is really real. And that's an interesting process. So my journey, I think most people that become conscious, it really starts with something big that happens in their lives, like something shatters them or breaks the normal way of being in some way. For me, it was my divorce. I was with my partner for 13 years, my ex-partner for 13 years, and then one day he mentioned that he wanted to get divorced, and we were only married for 9 months, and And through that, because it was such a massive shock to the system, something completely different to our normal routine, to everyday life, to the cycle of life that I was in at that stage, it shook me to my core. And it also made me realize how disconnected I had been from myself, because I had shoved down my intuition in regards to our relationship for years, and I was a shell of a person comparing to who I used to be. I wasn't living my truth. I lost myself completely, and I was completely disconnected from myself. And so that event started a series of events of making myself get to know myself and come back to myself, remember who I really was and who I really am. And it started off with moving out by myself, having to regain independence, where before I was completely reliant on another human and a very dependent partner, and separating my energy from his was a huge part. Learning to look after myself and be independent was a huge lesson. Then I started to listen to my intuition more, and actually sex really helped me, because I was sleeping around with people and I just felt like I kept getting hurt. And you know, my mum has this saying that if you keep experiencing the same thing from lots of people, then you're the common denominator. And I was like, I feel like all these boys are hurting me and I'm going through all this stuff, but I'm the common denominator here. So what is wrong with me? And I had to start being really honest with myself. What is wrong with me? What am I doing that is causing the same pattern to appear in my life over and over again? And that led me to starting doing some Tantra sessions. And in Tantra, you learn to get in tune with yourself. You learn about self-love. You learn about connecting to your body, listening to your body, listening to your truth, and self-love and boundary setting, which I never had before. And that was a big problem for me. And just learnt so much there. And by the way, I'm going to be creating a boundary setting course I'm creating a menstruation course for women first, but the boundary setting course is up next after that. And I just became so aware of all the areas of my life where I was at fault, and I had to face the deeper parts of myself where previously I shifted the blame onto others, and now I was going, hang on a sec, by shifting the blame onto others, I'm actually giving my power away, because there's a lesson in all these areas, and when I shift the blame onto others, I give away that lesson. And so I was like, how am I at fault? And so I started exploring that. I don't know if this is too dark. Hang on a sec. Let me see if I can change position, or if I need to take off my hat. I think that's better. We live in a culture where the victim... What is that? Oh, no, it's nothing. Where the victim mentality is glorified, and the victim mentality and toxic behavior is glorified from men and from women. I think that shows in our celebrity culture and our disconnection from nature, disconnection from ourselves. But we glorify it in music and movies, cancel culture, all sorts of things like that. And by recognizing that I was partaking in my victim mentality, and the victim part of ourselves is a very important part of healing, especially after trauma. It's important to recognize that it's really an important aspect of ourselves, but if we stay in it for too long, we can start to identify with it and start to make decisions and take actions based on it. So I started to recognize that some of the actions and behaviors that I was taking were from the victim mentality, and in order to take my power back, I had to take responsibility for myself and really start to take responsibility for myself. And this is a lot of what Tantra taught me. And I teach a lot of this in Dancing with Fire, one of my programs. So if you're interested in that, then make sure you sign up to my email database. The link is below. And when it's open next, I'll notify you via email. Then I jumped into my van, and started traveling around the coast of Australia and down, and yeah, I went to Tasmania, but that was after the next part of my story. And because I was starting to be a Tantra teacher then, I was starting to explore my body in a completely different way. And just reconnecting to my body, I realized I was so disconnected from myself. And it just opened up a whole new world of being in tune with myself and how I'm feeling, what my emotions mean, what the different sensations in my body feel like, getting rid of shame around sexuality and sensuality and my body and nudity and how I look and just all sorts of things like that. And just having the time, you know, I worked really hard when I was in my relationship, when I was working in corporate. I worked really hard to set up, I was working insane hours in the corporate world, but at the same time I was working really hard to set up a hobby business and like a side hustle. So I worked tremendous amounts of hours, and thankfully that stayed, you know, that hustle during those times and that dedication and following my intuition around creating another stream of income paid off, because it allowed me to jump in my van, not pay rent, not worry too much about money. You know, my side hustle doesn't earn me a huge amount of money, but if I'm not paying rent and bills and all sorts of things, I was easily able to live and travel in my van and just spend that time. I spent all up 9 months living in my van, being mostly with myself, learning to love my own company and reconnecting to who I am, reconnecting to myself, because for all of my life, due to trauma in early childhood, due to not listening to my body, not being connected to my body, partially because I've never been taught to, it was only Tantra that started to teach me about this stuff. Not being connected to myself, having a nervous system that was in overdrive due to trauma, due to the stress that I experienced at work, due to living in a society that glorifies stress and being busy and this hustle culture and productivity and progress at the cost of yourself and being a machine. I started to realize that all of that was bullshit, and I just really needed to reconnect to myself and who I was. And so I did that. I started doing that in my van and traveling and just getting out, becoming the fringe of society instead of being in the mainstream of society, doing something completely different. And spending so much time with myself started to reshuffle ideas and thoughts in my head. I was starting to feel alive. I was processing so many emotions. So much stuff was coming up because I was finally relaxing. And when we relax, emotions can start to come up and healing can occur in our bodies. So I was just experiencing so many different things in my van, spending that time with myself and with Falky, my dog. having adventures, really living life, instead of being a cog in a system that just wants you to be part of this stupid economy idea, instead of living your life and living your truth. Reshuffled so much, and I don't know if I would have been able to come to these conclusions if I just kept making the same decisions that are acceptable by society, because that puts you in a box. It's only the ideas that you have and the actions that you take that are outside of those norms that really allow us to get to know ourselves. So I started making decisions. I became the fringe of society, especially teaching about sexuality and self-pleasure, and you know, I'm still on the fringe of society and a lot of judgment can come through that, but knowing what's true for me, because I'm so in touch with my intuition and my body and my soul, knowing what is in touch with for me, I can stand in my power now and go, this is true for me. I know this is true for a lot of other people as well, because people are seeking these kind of truths, this type of wisdom. They're seeking something more out of life. And I think that one of the clues that we're seeking something more out of life is constantly racing thoughts and a system that's overdrive, looking for solutions. And it could be part of trauma as well, but I feel like that's our minds looking for solutions. And I feel like a lot of people are seeking something different because something does not feel right with how society is set up. It doesn't feel true. It feels like, what for? What are we doing all this for? Why? When we can live our lives and be true to ourselves. So living in my van was such an incredible step to starting to become conscious of who I was. And I felt like I started to connect to something deeper within myself. That ocean, that depth. There started to become a richness to life. I started to unnumb myself. I felt so numb for so many years. I was so disconnected from myself. And then I started teaching Tantra and deepening deeper into spiritual practices, doing breath work, doing yoga, doing tantric, loving on my body, self-love, self-care, so many different things. And just starting to understand myself and just how powerful we are as human beings when we really understand who we are. It's so funny, like we're born into this world and we're taught maths and geography and all these different things, but no one really teaches us about the power of ourselves. And this is what I started to discover. There's so much more than we are ever taught. And it's freeing. Once you learn about it, it's like shedding shackles of these constraints and freeing yourself. Same with unconditional love. Learning about unconditional love. It's so freeing. So I was already making incredible progress. But then came this little thing called ayahuasca, which was introduced to me by my yoga teacher, actually. And my ego actually led me to doing it, because I was like, oh, I want to try ayahuasca and get street cred, because I thought it was a cool thing. I had never heard of anything bad happening from psychedelics, and I got fucked up. I got messed up. And I spoke to, now I'm better than I ever have. And it's so easy to just go, oh yeah, it probably was ayahuasca. A lot of people who are in this psychedelic cult might say, oh yeah, the ayahuasca gave you what you needed. Well, actually, I spoke to my therapist and I was like, I don't think I would have been able to get through what I got through my whole ayahuasca experience if I didn't have the tools in my tool belt to understand myself from Tantra, from years of therapy, from different modalities like voice dialogue and understanding my emotions in different parts of myself. I would have gotten lost probably ended up in a psych ward if I didn't understand what was happening throughout that experience. And my therapist said, you know, the ayahuasca may have been something significant that happened in your life, but you got yourself through it. It wasn't the ayahuasca. You did the work in order to get yourself through it. And that is 100% correct, and that feels true in my body. Because there's a lot of people that get messed up from ayahuasca and psychedelics that don't make it through. And I could have very easily been one of those people if I didn't have the knowledge and the wisdom that I had and the tools in my tool belt to get through it. So I just wanted to make that clear. And I also know a lot of people who have done psychedelics, ayahuasca, all sorts of stuff, but are still not conscious to themselves and still haven't healed traumas, still have overridden nervous systems, still are suffering and don't understand themselves. So a psychedelic has nothing to do with healing. It can be a significant part of it, but unless we learn to embody ourselves and regulate our nervous systems and understand ourselves, it's just going to be a little blip that can potentially fuck you up. So through the ayahuasca, because I had to face such darkness and my terror and do so much work, it was so tiring and so terrifying, because I had to really dig deep to the deepest depths of myself and understand myself. I feel like that gave me confidence in really understanding myself to my core and having more tools that I came out with and just understanding myself on a much deeper level. But also it gave me the awareness of this reality and a deeper sense of my spirituality and what we are. You know, part of this big universal energy and the universe just exploring itself. And I had to go through levels of grief for my ego, for my unconscious ego, and strip back more and more layers of who I was. And that was, you know, I'm still recovering from the ayahuasca. I still have things that come up for me and still have parts of myself that I need to heal from that. And that's like two and a half years maybe now that I'm down the track, or 2 years. So it's been a journey, but through this I've really had to, like, that really forced me to connect in with myself and shed. You know, I grew up with a narcissistic father, and I acquired, when children grow up with narcissistic parents, they acquire narcissistic traits, and that can become part of the unhealthy ego. And maybe I was on the way to uncovering that slowly with my tantric journey and everything that I was learning there. But the ayahuasca stripped me right back to nothing. And I had to face, you know, it opened me up in a way to not having those narcissistic traits. I still think sometimes maybe I still have them, but at least I can recognize them now. You know, we all have a level of narcissism within us. It's just like we're all in a scale. I think I was pretty high up before, and just really coming from an unhealthy ego. But now I'm better at recognizing that unhealthy ego and parts of me that need to be healed than I ever have been before. And that gives me confidence in making decisions for myself and tuning in with my intuition and pursuing a life that is unconventional and on the fringe of society, and getting back to nature and what is real in the world. This land, being a guardian of the land that I live on, connecting in with nature and exploring the depth and richness of nature. I don't think we can ever, you know, as part of becoming conscious, I don't think you can separate nature from consciousness and being conscious. I think that's a crucial step, because we realize that we are nature. We are just animals with a very limited time on this planet. And that's another thing that I really had to come to terms with, was my death, that I am finite, and stop being triggered by that and accept and love the fact that I have a limited time on this planet, because we hide death from our society and it doesn't serve anyone. Because I remember when my grandma died, and it shook me so deeply, because I had to come to the realization that life is finite. And I didn't realize that before, because no one really talks about death in our culture, in our westernized culture, in our colonized culture. We've stripped ourselves back from rituals, from indigenous knowledge and wisdom. The more I am going on my path, the more I realize just how deep this wisdom, indigenous wisdom, is, and how important it is. But also it resides in all of us, if we're willing to strip back what is not real and get back to ourselves. And, you know, the movie The Matrix is a documentary about how we're plugged into a system and under this illusion that it's real, but it's not. And coming to these realizations made me come back to myself, and that's my story of becoming conscious. And I think consciousness isn't something that just happens and then, now I'm conscious, da, da, la, 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 la. Nope. It's constant work. It's constant work of uncovering yourself, of discovering deeper and deeper parts of yourself, of realizing patterns, reoccurring patterns that are happening in your life, of making tough decisions that might not make sense to your mind but make sense to your intuition. And it's constant work. Sometimes I just, you know, it's so humbling, because your ego, your unhealthy ego, takes a beating over and over, because you essentially want to heal all the parts of you that are based on survival, are based on being in a system that keeps you stuck in something that isn't true to you. It keeps you stuck in not being alive to your true self. And that ego is something that takes a beating, because it's not who I really am. And it hurts every time you do it. So that's why consciousness, like, anyone who's really been on a journey of consciousness, even though you might have a lot of confidence in yourself because you know how to understand yourself, like, it's nothing to hold over another person, because it's a difficult journey. And if anything, it makes you more humble. And anytime that you're not humble and you act out of unhealthy ego, the universe kicks your fucking ass, and then you become humble. And just as a lesson to help you to come back to your true self. So it's a constant being aware of the unhealthy ego and what's happening there, and healing yourself. It's constant work. And there are times where I'm just like, fuck this conscious bullshit. I wish I was unconscious again, because life seemed so much easier back then. But then I'm glorifying how I felt before, and while I wasn't aware of all these parts of myself, if I'm really honest with myself, I was not happy. I was suffering internally. I was feeling suicidal. I was depressed. I was not looking after my body. I was disconnected. But now, being conscious and aware of who I really am, I feel alive. I love myself. I love every single part of myself. I love learning about myself. I want to learn more. I want to dig deeper. I want to sink deeper in my own innate wisdom and unconditional love. I want to experience all that life has to offer. It's so deep and so beautiful. It's like a deep, beautiful ocean of so many possibilities to explore and play and adventure through, and it's really special. So that's my journey, and it continues. It continues. The more I listen to my intuition, take actions based on my intuition, and do therapy, the deeper I deep into myself and heal from my ayahuasca, the more I consciously choose to be aware of my experiences of this life, the deeper I go into this beautiful ocean, this vastness and this depth of life. It's no longer shallow. It's more, sometimes it's just overwhelming as to how many possibilities there are. There's so much more to life than what we're taught. And it's incredible to experience. So yeah, that's my journey. I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, please subscribe to my channel and let me know what other videos you would like me to create. I have so many that I want to create. I have so much to teach, so much wisdom to share, so many things that are coming through me. And I'm so excited, so many powerful things that I know are going to transform a lot of lives. So, and if you're interested in one-on-one coaching, my programs, make sure you subscribe to my email newsletter, which is below, and join me on Instagram as well. But if you are looking for one-on-one coaching, I teach all this stuff. I can teach you, I'll take you through a process of becoming more conscious and aware of yourself and understanding yourself better, and we can work on that. And my programs teach this as well. I've already created Dancing with Fire. That's closed for now because I'm creating my new one, which is for women around their menstrual cycle, and that is mind-blowing. It's gonna be so good. Trust me, it's gonna be so good. Just a whole new level of connection to your body. So subscribe to my newsletter, and my battery's just about to run out. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video and on Instagram.